Alright everyone, we are back for tutorial number 7, designing Streks. Now, personally, Streks are my favorite part of this game. I really love the fighters. I love to fly around in them. It's a part of the game I really hope the devs put even more love into soon. So we're going to get right to it. Now, if you're a new player and you want to design a Strek, you're going to be limited to fighter size or single-seater aircraft. Because cities have R&D areas, but the R&Ds are just basic. Remember, we spoke in another tutorial about how your access in the city to refine, to build, things like that, it's just the base level stuff, which is totally fine, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to just design a simple Strek that's level 1. I'm doing it in my castle. As you can see, this is a really cool, well-developed castle. It's very expensive, somewhere in the range of 85,000 gold, which that's about $30 of gold. So I mean, if you want a castle, that's a major financial commitment. But even if you don't have a castle, it's totally cool. You can do this in the city and just do fighter Streks. So the first thing you're going to want to do, obviously, is click on your R&D. In our case, it's this one. As a human, you'll just have to click around until you find a large building that says R&D. Then you're going to go down here. There's 3 types of Streks, and we'll go through them real quick before we start designing. There's your single-seater Streks, and these are the 3 orc Streks. There's also, actually there's 5 single-seaters for humans. Kind of unfair if you ask me. Humans get the, I think it's called the Golem, and a couple other really cool ones. They have way better options for fighters, so if you're all about the Streks, humans might be the way to go. And then we've got double-seaters, or 2-seaters, which are like, think of them like old biplanes, like the old Sopwith Camels, or similar planes like that, where you had a rear gunner. Actually, Sopwith Camels only had a single seat, but it's the same layout, where you've got a rear gunner who fires on anyone coming behind you, World War I style. These are really good for hunting dragons, because if you're out attacking dragons, going after them, you've got a rear gunner covering your back at all times. They're a little bit heavier though, so some ships can't carry them. Then of course there's 5-seater Streks, which is the equivalent of a bomber. 5-seaters also have rear gunners, but they're really meant, and I'll just show you real quick, they're really meant, they have enormous wing space. They're meant to hold tons of bomb dropping release levers. So anyway, we're going to start with just a single-seater so that those of you who are new and don't have access to double-seaters have the ability to still follow along. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on single-seater. And I'm an orc, so I'm going to choose one of my orc planes. If you're human, look for the one that will say single-seater battle Streklet. Battle Streks tend to be the most hardy of the Streks, and they have the most, I can't think of the word, the most play area. Like you have a lot more space available within it. So for the orcs, we're going to choose the Drike. You can rename your Strek if you'd like. Let's call ours Test Strek. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to go down the list and I'm going to explain every component, but we're going to adjust these components as we go. So first of all, you have your engines. There's 4 classifications of engines. There's the M1s, which are the smallest and weakest. Think of them like a Geometro. You've got your M2s, a little bit faster, a little bit more powerful. You'll notice as I click through these, the cruising speed down here and the maximum speed is increasing, as is the weight. Now we're into the M3s. This is, in my opinion, the sweet spot for engines. It's not super heavy, but it is fairly powerful. The M3 1040 is fairly simple to craft. It takes forever because crafting times are just ridiculous in this game, but your best bet is to get a facility with a whole bunch of crafting facilities and queue up a bunch at once, so you don't have to wait for days for something to be done. So that's the M3 1040, my personal favorite. Now we get into the M4s. M4s are very powerful engines, and they're very heavy too. M4 1690 is the best one to build out of the M4s if you don't want to spend a ton of money. You get into the M4 2080s, these require superchargers to build, or turbochargers, excuse me, to build. And that's a item that you buy for gold from an NPC city. So if you do want to put the M4 2080 in your Strek, then you're a very committed individual who does not mind spending a lot of gold. So we're going to go back, and in our case, we're going to do the M3 1040. It's a pretty simple engine. Now we're going to go down the list here. There's 3 different materials your Streks are made out of: planks, plywood panels, and sheet iron. And they go in ascending order on what is the most powerful, but also what is the most heavy. So if you make your Strek completely out of planks, it's going to be very light, but it's also going to have a very limited carrying capacity because it's made of wood, basically. Plywood panels are a little bit stronger, a little bit heavier, and they'll make your Strek a little bit more aerodynamic in the sense that it will go faster, but it won't have as much lift. Sheet iron, of course, is, I mean, think of it like World War II fighter planes. They were heavier, but they also had much more powerful engines at that time because they'd had about 20 years to manufacture better engines from 1918 to 1938. And sheet iron is your best bet if you need to put a lot of weight in it. We'll see what we need as we go. Now there's wing area. This is literally what it is, wing area. So the higher this number, the larger your wings are. If you know anything about World War II, like Spitfires, for example, the banana wing design, were very large flight area. They have extremely maneuverable aircraft. Now whenever we design a Strek, we always want to go for maximum wing area. The key to clicking through this quickly is holding down shift while clicking the plus key. It increases it by a factor of 10. Whereas if I did it without shift, it's a single point every click. Alright, looks like just under 16 is my max wing area on a single-seater Strek. And you'll notice as I did that, the cruising speed lowered, but I'm also able to get more out of my engine, and I'll show you as I do it. Let me go backwards now. Because as I decrease the wing area, the plane has to work harder to keep itself in the air. So I personally sacrifice speed for wing area all the time. If you're doing the races, the 6-hour races in game, you'll want to go for speed. But since we're going for fighting and we want maneuverability, we want to stay in the air, wing area is important. Okay, now angle of the wing attack. Think of that kind of like flaps in a sense. So this increasing this increases the angle of your wing. It will definitely slow you down, as you'll see. Watch the cruising speed. There's a massive decrease in speed right there. Now our little fast fighter is not so fast, but it's only using 51% of its available engine power just to stay at cruising speed. That means the engine's not working very hard at all. We'll revisit that in just a minute. Okay, now aileron area, rudder, and elevator area are literally the size of your aileron, rudder, and elevators. The bigger this is, the more maneuverable your plane will be. However, I don't really recommend you even touch these because we've done experimentation in my guild. We're a very Strek heavy guild. We love fighters and we love bombing, which you'll see bombing in another tutorial. We've experimented with these a lot, and we've found that when you increase these areas, yes, it becomes more maneuverable, but it becomes incredibly too maneuverable to where every click of the button and your Strek is going to go flying in every which way. It's really better to just not touch these at all. Maybe your rudder you can increase a little bit, but I don't really mess with these. Basic stabilizer angle. This is, you'll see when you fly your plane, it will pull up or it will pull down, depending on this. 0 means there's no effect at all added to both lift or fall. You'll literally be flying straight by default, assuming that your engine was exactly at 100%, which it's not. So in this case, our Strek would be pulling up a lot because we have an enormous amount of power. However, the cool thing about the game is eventually if you fly straight, even though you will pull way up, the strek will reach an angle at which it can't pull up anymore, and it will start to level out, and pretty soon you'll just be doing a steady climb without even touching the controls. And I'm going to show you more on that as we actually fly our strek. So this is up to you. This is fun to play around with. We've done bombers where we increased the stabilizer angle, but for the most part I don't personally mess with that angle. It's totally up to you. Amount of fuel, that one's pretty straightforward. 40 units of fuel is going to get me 8 minutes in my current setup. That's definitely not enough, so let's hold down shift. Let's put in, let's just say 300 fuel. We're probably going to lower that because we're going to need room for weapons. But 300 fuel with nothing else in my ship, or in my fighter, is going to give me 52 minutes of fuel. The M3 engine uses imanol. That's another thing I need to mention. Each engine uses a different type of fuel, but the cool thing is they can all use any fuel. They're just more efficient when it comes to their given fuel. So like if I put imanit, which is that green stuff in this thing, it's not going to really get 52 minutes. It's going to get like 45. And if I put IMA, which is just straight up crude oil in this thing, it's going to get even less fuel efficiency than that. It's not so much what the grade of the fuel is, it's how many levels away from the preferred grade the fuel is. So like imanol ether, which is the absolute best fuel in the game, I'm still going to lose time on that even though it's supposedly more efficient. So try to equip what your engine is meant to use. In our case, we're using imanol for the M3. If you're following along with me and you're using a smaller engine, just make sure you make note down here of what type of fuel it's supposed to use so that you will equip the right fuel. Okay, last category is cargo compartment. This is a pretty interesting category. You don't really use it on fighter streks, but 2-seaters and definitely 5-seaters, you're going to have enormous cargo compartments because you're going to want to fit bombs, you're going to want to fit grappling hooks. Grappling is another really cool thing. I'm going to show that in another tutorial as well. Capturing other ships. So far I've not been able to. It's extremely hard to do, but it's very fun. And you can do things like auto-loaders, which means if you have missiles, you could put a bunch in your cargo compartment and just continually fire missiles. So think of it like an F-16 if an F-16 had an ammo bay for its actual missiles and could just keep on pumping them out. Obviously that's not possible, but you know, this is a fantasy world, so what do we care? Alright, we're gonna just miss the cargo compartment, especially because this is a mini strek. We're gonna go to our mount points. Now, if I click on the first mount point, it's loading a weapon into the front left side of my aircraft. And I can scroll through all these cool weapons here. Now, what you're going to want to do as a new player is you're going to want to go for the 300 variant of any gun that this asks for. Reason being is you as a new player can only craft the base level machine guns. So we're going to do 1/40, let's do 1/50 just so we don't use up weight. 150s are very small caliber, but we are in a fighter, so it's meant to be shooting small caliber weapons. And here's a little hint. If you move this over, let's go 1/50 300s, you'll notice that each of these guns takes up a single spot. So that's the weight of 2 guns right now on my fighter. I'm already up to 60% cruising speed, which is getting close. 70 is the cutoff. And I haven't even put extra ammo in these. However, if I go to these 2 guns, wing-mounted guns, I get double guns on there. So instead of putting guns here, let's put them on our wings. 1-50 and 1-50 at 63% cruising speed already. Now, personally, I want my fighter to, I want it to be fast right now. I want it to be fast and maneuverable. It's using 63% of the engine just to maintain lift. So that means I've only got about 7%, because after 70, you start to fall. You have a very hard time climbing at all. I just know that from experience. I can tell you that. We want to get as much as we can out of this strek. So let's do this. Let's get rid of, actually, let's get rid of the outer or the inner guns. There we go. Now we just have 2 guns left. We're at 60%. Let's cheat a little bit and get a 1-40. Because I know in my castle I happen to have 140 ammo. You can do a 150. Don't feel like you have to do this. So 1-40, 300 means 300 rounds a minute. We're going to need more ammo. So you don't have to shift click because it's a unit of 900 or 800. That's a huge amount of ammo. So we're just going to click over. Let's get 320. How about that? 320 rounds of ammunition is a pretty good healthy amount for a single flight. Because remember, we just have 2 machine guns. Okay, so we have 320. We've got enough fuel now for 48 minutes. We don't need that much fuel. Let's say this is an interceptor. We're just going out to kill a few dragons and immediately land. We're not going out for a very long trip. So we can lower that to 200, which brings us to 33 minutes of fuel. It's going to be less because this is assuming that you were just cruising. You're just flying at a straight line. You're doing nothing. But, of course, if we're going to be doing aerial acrobatics, fighting dragons and whatnot, it's going to be less than this, probably by about 10 minutes. So it's about 20 to 23 minutes of fuel. Angle of the wing attack, all that stuff is good. But you'll notice that we're at 1,775 maximum weight, and we're only taking up 1,259. So we can cheat that a little bit and try to get as close to this number, meaning the most we can carry, to this number, meaning what we're currently carrying, so that we can get a little bit more lift. Alright, so when I drag planks all the way over, now I don't have enough carrying capacity. My strek is overloaded and I can't finish the blueprint because the strecklet weight exceeds the maximum possible value. So, we're going to slide steel over just a tiny bit. There we go, look how close we got. 1151, 1119. And now we're only using 56% of our cruising speed. That means that this thing is going to climb no problem because it's not even taxed. I mean, it's got tons of extra speed to blow off in a fight. I prefer maneuverability over speed. If you prefer speed, you're going to want to pull this sheet iron over. It increases your speed. It also increases your weight. It's just totally up to you. But in our case, we're going to go for maneuverability. Strike test strek. We got our 2 machine guns on. We're using very little ammo. Or excuse me, very little engine. And looks good. I think we're ready to go. And you can put a cargo compartment on your fighter. Currently, at this particular patch in the game, you're still able to drag a crystal onto your strek without needing a cargo compartment. But once you have a cargo compartment, the crystal goes into that before you actually apply it to the strek. So if you do put a cargo compartment in there, make sure it's at least size 50 because your crystal is going to be 50. And if you want to do an auto reloader, I'll probably do another tutorial on advanced strek design because there's things like auto reloaders. There's the grappling hooks. There's a lot more to these than what I'm showing you. But in your little strek, let's just not touch the cargo compartment. And one other note before the end of this tutorial: when you're building a strek, when you're done building it, you are going to want to put a crystal on it because streks are super easy to kill. They have virtually no health. I mean, this thing weighs 1119. I think the health of it is about 1119. So this thing can be shot out of the sky in just one missing bullet. One quick bullet can take this thing out. So remember our other tutorial about dragon hunting, how you should at least get the base level crystal skill. I still believe that is very valid. You should have some kind of crystal on these, even if it's the little cheapy 1 gold crystal that just gives it 100,000 health. Because dragons are very fast and very maneuverable, and they will chase your strek down and kill it very quickly. Alright, so enough of my talking and yammering on. We're done designing our strek. Let's go to Finish Blueprint. Hey, where'd it go? Well, it went right here. We go to our R&D, we go to the warehouse, and there's a whole bunch of blueprints. I've got a kamikaze, which is really fun to fly. I've got anti-pirate with heavy machine guns. There's seriously, Streks are so fun in this game. You can do so much cool stuff with them, and they're incredibly customizable, unlike airships, which you can't do anything with them except for put weapons on them. We've got A-16. Nice. We got the Revolution, which is my Liberator bomber. This thing can drop over 8 million damage in one run, which anyone who's played the game for a while knows that's a ton. Dragon Hunter, Grappler, that's my pirate capturing ship. And a hauler, that's by one of my friends who built it just to haul a bunch of stuff across the map. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the drawing, our test Strek 4. We're going to click it. And we're going to hit Create Strek. Now, if you're in a city, you need all the materials to make this. So you'll need in your Strek bay, or in your R&D, you'll need boards, plywood panels, sheet iron. You'll need that M3 engine, so you'll have to either craft it or buy one. And you'll need 2 1-40 machine guns. It doesn't ask for fuel and it doesn't ask for ammo during the creation process. That's after we've built it. So I'm going to hit Create Strek. And there we go, 1 hour and 10 minutes to finish that Strek. Now, I'm going to rush it so that I can get on to the next tutorial in just a few minutes here. 71 gold, that's just ridiculous. And I will see you for the next tutorial, and we're going to take our Strek out and we're going to test it out on some dragons. Oh, and one other thing, to take your Strek out, you can launch it from any base. However, for the tutorial, I'm going to launch it from a ship so that I can go to a dragon lair and find them more readily. But it is not required for what you're doing. Alright, see you guys later, and I'll see you next tutorial.